Okay, I'm recording. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again. And can everyone see my screen? Go ahead and move the chat box over here in case somebody types something in. Hopefully. Go ahead and open up Rhino. All right. Just waiting for this to open up. All right, so this is, for instance, what these things look like when you open up these blocks from null, right? There's the quick rendered view in my viewport. All right, so informal sort of seeding versus formal seeding, things like that. I'm gonna go ahead and start from scratch. Let me turn this view off. I'll start with new. I'm gonna use large objects in feet, or feet in inches. Let's do that. What I wanna do is just double check and make sure my units are in feet. So just go to tools, pull down, go to units, options, units. There's, okay, they're already set to feet by default. Okay, good. And I'm gonna go ahead and file, I'm gonna import one of these AutoCAD drawings, right? DWG, I mean, look, you can import on any of these stuff. So DWG is one of those file types that everybody should work with, should be able to work with. It's an AutoCAD file. Model units feet, layout inches, units inches. I don't really care about the layout units. I want to make sure model units are set to feet. Now here's the problem. For whatever reason, I had this problem with CAD Mapper as well. I'm going to go ahead and delete that label from that stupid AutoCAD file. I still have some def points in here and things like that, which is annoying. Someone wants to tell me what def points are. I've used AutoCAD since AutoCAD release 13 or 14, and I still don't know what def points are or why they actually are created in an AutoCAD file. Go to the layers. I'm just going to change the layer color to something darker so it's a little easier to see on a white background here. There we go. Okay, but I'm going to just go in top view. I'm just going to try to draw like a 3-foot line, right? Just to sort of look at the, see clearly this is a 3-foot line clearly, and I'm looking at a chair in plan. Clearly the scale is off. So it looks almost like I'm drawing a 3-inch line, right? And so for whatever reason, I don't know if this is a Rhino 7 thing or what. It doesn't make any sense to me. When I export things, I had the same problem with Revit. I had to do something particular going back and forth between the two that we'll talk about after spring break. But at any rate, what I need to do is I need to select all this stuff, and I just need to scale it. So I'll just scale it around this point. For the scale factor, I'm just, instead of using, right now what's 3 feet looks like it should be, what should be 3 feet is 3 inches, right? Or sorry, no, everything's 12 times bigger than it should be. Let's put it that way. So I'm just going to use a scale factor 1/12. So 1/12. Want everything to be 1/12 the size. Okay. I don't know why it's having a hard time with feet and inch conversions when you bring in a DWG. It's funny, I did it in Rhino 5 because I have like 5, 6, and 7 on my machine because they've always upgraded. And 5 works great. 6 and 7 have some scale issues. I don't know what it is when it comes to working with certain file types from other CAD programs. Now when I make a 3-foot, yeah, okay, so that's 36 inches right there. Yeah, all right. Cool. Right, so, you know, let's say I'm looking at a conference room to sit somewhere between the neighborhood of 8 to 12 people, right? Well, here it is, right? Here's baseline, probably what I need, right? To house a table with chairs. These are chairs scoot back so people can get out. You know, first thing I'm probably going to do here is I'm just going to quickly try to estimate the sort of extents of the furniture. Right. Now, how much room do I need around this for people to circulate around before I hit a wall or some other piece of furniture along the wall? Let's say I'm in a wheelchair. How much room do I need? 3 feet, 3 feet at least, right?
Yeah.
So what I'd probably do is start to draw the extents box here, then just quickly offset it. Offset it 3 feet, right? Now I'm starting to get this sort of circulation zone around the table, right? You got to think about these things, right? This is your chance to sort of say, okay, this for the next 50 minutes, I'm just going to look at meeting rooms, conference rooms. I'm going to look and see. I'll Google it, look at good examples of them. I'll double check and make sure that I'm following ADA guidelines. I'm going to actually insert furniture and try to arrange it in some sort of way, etc. Right? Sometimes these things are actually staring at a screen, right, at one side of the room or the other, right? Let's see. Let me try to find a set of blocks with a screen here. I'll just download it and open it up or import it in really quickly. There's a small meeting room with a screen. That's a tiny screen though. Let's see. There we go. I'll go with an activity space. Why not? So I'll use this screen as a, and maybe this is an ugly sawhorse looking piece of furniture. Don't ever spec this if you're an architect later on from Knoll. Anyway, sorry, I'm totally judging right now, but yeah, shouldn't we? All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and import some more furniture, and I just downloaded that block. I'll go ahead and import it in, file import. Okay, I'll go ahead and hit OK. I'll just leave this as the default. You can tell it's 12 times larger than it needs to be. So I'll go ahead and select this, all this stuff that I just imported in and scale it. 1/12. All right. And I'll even move it closer over here so I can actually use it to some effect over here, right? Wait, come on. There, all right. Not sure why this is. I really absolutely despise this, but so I'm going to delete this away right now. Gross. I mean, to each their own, right? And in top view, let's see, I'll just go ahead and rotate this around and put it in place. Looks like the mount is, oh, I thought I hit rotate. Guess not. I have to turn ortho on if I want to rotate 90 degrees, don't I? Okay. Took me several tries, but I think I got it. Right. So again, let's say there's a screen with some sort of technology, underneath it. Right, maybe it's at the head, one of the heads of the table. Not sure if I aimed that right. It looks like the mounting is on the back side, yep, against the wall. Okay, and so suddenly I start to understand I need to understand how I extend this stuff, right? Maybe there's a table over here where you enter with refreshments, coffee, water, cookies, brownies, Rice Krispie treats. You tell I'm hungry and I want lunch. Anyway, so on and on and on. Once I have done this and I'm sort of really confident about, let's say in this case, a meeting conference room for 8 to 12 people, right? Then I can sort of wrap this thing up, right? And so what that involves might be, well, first of all, let me go ahead and just scale 1D this and stretch this a bit. All right. There we go. So that's, conference room-ish, right? Once I have this, I can go ahead and offset it maybe 5-6 inches, for sort of if there was an actual wall or something around it. Let's offset this distance 0.5 feet, so 6 inches. Let's go with that for now. Seems like maybe it's overkill, but maybe that'll allow me to actually put some soundproofing in or something, I guess. Okay, there's a couple things I'm going to do here. One is I'm going to actually put a 2x2 grid along the floor here. Oops, I just made something there. I'm just going to go ahead and move that 2 feet. Right, 2 feet is a pretty common module for raised floor systems, hung ceiling systems, etc. Right, 24 inches, 24-inch grid is fairly typical. So I'm just going to go ahead, copy, select objects to copy. And I'm going to say 22 inches or 2 feet, sorry. And then from last point, yes. Use last distance, yes. Use last direction, yes. Click, 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 click. Just keep copying it across. Okay. And that gives, first of all, everybody, when they're looking at the floor, a sense of scale. And second, it begins to imply that there's some sort of flooring system underneath. Maybe there's a raised floor for running systems underneath, data and power. Or maybe it's just, again, in plan, you're going to have these sorts of finishes and things like that. Some of these things sort of implied there, right? It's not enough just to have, drawings look really dumb, particularly if you look at them in one detail when there's not a lot of information on them, right? The bigger the drawing, the more information it should have on it. Otherwise, it just looks empty and kind of crude, right? And so things like, not having a large expanse of floor without any information on it, but beginning to sort of break it up, put joints in between materials and things like that, begin to talk about how something might be panelized or, et cetera, right? And offices are so modular, right? So, again, you don't get a lot of one-off pieces of furniture for an office. You usually buy, you purchase a system and just go with it, right? Oh, sorry, I keep wanting to do 24 inches instead of 2 feet. Just type in 2. Oh, copy. Yeah, there we go. Copy 2 feet. From last point, yes, yes, yes. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. I'm just making a 24 by 24 inch grid on the floor, right? That'll show up when we render these things out. Right? For a conference room, I might have walls around this thing, right? So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about, like, in plan, we cut walls, we cut through things at 4 feet above the finished floor, right? So maybe I'll extrude these up 4 feet, as if it's like a sort of plan axon, right? In this case, for walls. So I'll just say extrude. And I'll extrude these things. I'll say solid yes, and I'll say 4 feet. All right. Didn't make it solid, did it? Ah, those jerks. All right, that's all right. There's other ways to close these. I'll just select these because they're all planar. The outside and the inside. I should fill it in. Oh yeah, there it is. Awesome. I don't really care about the bottom. I'll never see it. This is just an axon. All right. Where would the door be, right? Then I could actually make a door opening 3 feet wide, probably about 4 inches or so in from the corner, right? Because you always need to have room to put hardware on the wall or the door to make sure that it doesn't slam into the wall and start putting dents and holes into the wall, right? You also have door closures sometimes at the top. And of course, you have door handles and other hardware on the inside. So you always leave some space there for the door jamb and then even room in between the door jamb and the wall if you're putting a door on the corner, right? I think we all sort of look at this and recognize these things. Even in our homes, they do that, right? So, but I'll just stop here for a moment. I need a floor. I haven't done that, right? So maybe I will add a bottom to this, but I'm just going to close up the entire thing along the bottom here. Curve. There, I'll just take this curve that I did an offset, and I'll just fill that in with a planar surface, right? I said axon, so I need to make this an axon. So I'll go to my viewport label and go to set view. And isometric is one of the changes, right? So isometric, first of all, is going to turn into a 30-30 axon drawing, which means it's going to be parallel projection. It means it won't be perspective. There won't be any vanishing points, right? So everything's going to be a sort of paraline drawing. But then it also has me pick the direction I want to look at it in. So maybe it's this one. That was northeast. All right. I don't want to tilt this. I'm going to keep it as a true 30-30 axon. And like I said, once I go to rendered, all those shaders turn to white. Everything that's sort of surface-based or mesh-based turns to white. My black lines show up. Unfortunately, these points are showing up. Oh, I want to get rid of those points. but maybe for right now, this is perfectly fine, right? This is just me in Rhino 7 just using the rendered view. I'm not even gonna bother to render it, although I'm gonna go to the render settings and I'm going to get rid of, this stupid ground plane. I want these to look like they're floating in space here. Yeah. And yeah, there we go, right? So look, as you start to do this stuff, right? Workstations, singular workstations, pods of 4 people or 4 people in a team or something like that. Again, soft seating for group collaborations between 3 and 5 people, right? You know, those sorts of things that you were putting together in your program, now you literally want to put them together spatially, okay? As separate items, right? So each line item in the sort of program you guys were delineating, right? At least for the workspaces, now has an axon attached to it, right? Bare minimum, baseline, this is what the amount of space we need, the kind of furniture we need. Here's how it might be laid out, right? And again, what we're doing is we're developing the puzzle pieces, and then we fit the puzzle together several different ways, right? When we come back from spring break, right? Again, when we come back from spring break, we have to marry the site model and all the program model and the overall massing and formal models together, right? Like all put them all in the same space and really negotiate that, right? So this is, I think, is a good step in sort of understanding, right, from sort of like a verbal description of what you're looking for in a really abstract sort of square footage to like, here's this amount of space I actually need, right? And here's how they might, this one might actually be L-shaped. This one might be rectangular shaped. This one might be a really large expanse, but look, I just have these clustered in 4 pods of 4. They're individual workspaces, and maybe it's in pods of 4. I can begin to deploy them out, or maybe this is how it'd work if I had 20 of them. This is how it'd work if I had all 50 right there, smack dab in the middle of together, or what, right? So you can begin to again think about all those spaces that you put in for your workspace: reception, lobby, conference, meetings, breakout rooms, collaboration spaces, team pods, individual workstations, right? Each of you have a certain amount of this stuff, right? Now it's figuring out like how much stuff you actually have, right? Here's what I want you to do as well. I want you to be able to label each of these in Illustrator, right? Label each of these in Illustrator, and then give me an approximate new square footage for each space. So if you come in under your target square footage or over your target square footage, I want to know. You want to know, okay? It's not that there's anything wrong with that per se, particularly if you're working with a client back and forth and they're really believing in what you're doing. They might be willing to pay for more space because they need it, right? But you want to know that. You want to be able to sort of have some of those calculations back in as a sort of check on your thinking here, okay? So in this case, I don't necessarily need to do a make 2D, right? Here's what I'm doing. In Rhino 7, I can just use the rendered, and I can just, since this is just going to be a set of axons, and they're going to be smaller in a diagram, right? I can just go to View, Capture to File, and I can just capture this as JPEG or a PNG, right? I can say transparent background, save as a PNG if I wanted to. Or just as a JPEG, and it'll save this white background. If you are in Rhino 7 and it doesn't look like this, right? You can go to your render settings. Usually they're here with the layers and the properties. If not, you can find them under the render pull down. Surprise, right? Go to render pull down, at the very bottom is render properties, right? It'll pull up a box that looks just like this. And what I have is solid color backdrop. I'm just going to use pull out the viewport size as the size of the graphic. 72 DPI I'm fine with. I'm not even worrying about any of this stuff. Transparent background, I have you can check that or you can uncheck it. I just have my solid color background set to white. I've turned off the sun. I've turned on the skylight. I have a custom environment called Studio. It's just whatever the defaults were. You can actually say to render out curves. Okay, that's more about that if you're using Rhino 6 and you're using like that the legacy Rhino 6 rendering engine to actually do this. Then Rhino 7, you don't even have to worry about that. I'm not going to actually hit render. I'm just going to literally capture this out. So I captured a file. I wouldn't do this if I really needed something high, super high res, but this is just fine for me. I'm not picky. I am who I am. Don't judge me. Right? Let's see. I'll just save that on my desktop, okay, for later. So that's another one I could just pull out into Illustrator, okay. And then on to the next thing, right? Maybe it's a meeting space for 3 to 6 people, right? Maybe it's right, and so that's what I would do, right? Go through your program and start to actually elaborate what you would need, right? Now, there's a couple of questions. I'll just quickly address those. Nico, do you want walls with everything? Only where it makes sense, right? So here it is. Here's a conference room, right? It makes sense to probably be able to close off a conference room for privacy if you need it, right? Or to not bug other people out, maybe outside the conference room with noise and the sound of having a meeting, right? Or whatever it is, okay? So only where it makes sense. That said, once it comes down to arranging these in space, it's easy for me to just get rid of these walls, just delete them, right? Let's say actually, there's a doorway here, there's windows here. Actually facing the office, there's windows with some blinds on them in case you want some visual privacy to control the lighting, right? Okay. Don't even worry about the alternative programs. Okay. You're not doing a floor plan. You're doing axons of blocks of space. So this is still very much, so you're not laying anything out, right? Except for individual spaces in your program. Right.
I have a semi-specific question.
Sure.
Because I was kind of inspired by the Bureau Landschaft and then the original Action Office. So I wanted like these clusters of kind of hexagony kind of things that almost share the circulation space, like kind of like moving around it. So when I do this, should I do it in like clusters of 2 or 3, just how it will be, or just do individual islands?
Great question. Let's address that now while I'm here. So I'll just do this. I'll do an example of that here in front of everybody. Okay. I'm going to import something else here. Let's see. I could just go here. Media enclave, small meeting, unscripted. Where's work lounge? Those are private offices. Let's go with open plan. Let's see what some of these look like here. Let's see what this one looks like. Sometime today. It's just a 79K JPEG. What's going on, Google? Come on. I could draw this image quicker than Google's showing it to me. Interesting. What's going on? This really drives me crazy. Well, nevertheless, it'd just be quicker to download this, I guess. Scanning for viruses. Well, take your time. All right. Okay, so sorry. All of that just to be able to import a darn, let's see, 146. So it's this one, right? I'll go ahead and say okay. I'm just putting this in, right? So let's say identified these as like, some generic individual workstations, right? In this case, they're clustered together, in a 2x2 sort of quad configuration, right? Which, I mean, I don't know, maybe that worked when you're in kindergarten and you're moving your desks around the room, but I don't think that would work so well with, actually, I guess that's how our studios are laid out, aren't they? Anyway, oh boy, all right. So maybe actually what I'm going to do is just pull out one of these. Oh, I see. Yeah. So the leg/modesty plates are like span for 2 desks. All right, great. All right, I'll go ahead and delete that. I'll just do a different one. Fine. Be that way, no. Open plan. Let's just look at this one. Let's see if this works. All right, let's try that. Why not? So what you can see is that, some of these are already arranged in sort of a suggested configuration anyway. You don't have to go with that. What I want you to do is sort of have desks and chairs, shelves and things like that that you can use if you want to go sort of off the beaten path here and do it yourself like you were suggesting, Nico. But let's just talk about how you might approach that. So let me go ahead and import that file. Sorry, just import. All right, that one. Sure, why not? Yeah. All right, let's move this out of the way a bit. Let's scale it down quite a bit. 112. Yeah. You know, you could scale it way down and pretend you're a giant, but then whenever you do that one, maybe it's just me. Go ahead and turn this back to perspective for a moment. However I do that. There we go. Come on, Josh, think. All right. Okay, so once again, I'm going to do a couple of things here, right? For instance, when I think about office space, the requirement is 100 square feet gross at least. Or is it gross or net? I can't remember. I would say probably start with 100 square feet-ish per person, right? And so you're going to think about how workspace and place for desk and things like that sort of bubble, right? For one person sort of occupies space. It's going to be a decent amount of that. Then you're going to understand that, you know, part of that gross amount will be eaten up with some circulation and core and stuff like that, okay? They're puzzle pieces for later, exactly right, Madison. Okay, so if I was doing this, let's say I really liked this configuration with the L's, but I really hate these things over here. I'll go ahead and delete those maybe. Try to. What is that? It looks like maybe a bus to run power cables to the floor. All right. Which oftentimes they do build into office furniture, right? I mean, office furniture is such a modular thing, right? So you're always going to be using these sort of basic shapes in order to sort of figure out how things go together. So let's say, maybe I take out this easel and whatever this is. You know, it's stupid because this probably is cost like $300. Probably cost them like $40 to make. All right. Let's say I thought, you know, this is the perfect way to sort of arrange things. I don't know, whatever, right? Or maybe I thought about, you know, sort of pods of, let's see, let me do this even better now that I think about this. I'll just mirror this, maybe. So I'm trying to do too many things in my head at once. There we go. Maybe I'll mirror it this way and, you know, actually it's, no, maybe I won't. Never mind. Anyway, I'm getting too far into the details here, right? Maybe let's say this is like what I'm thinking about, you know, how to start to configure things. What I would do is I would start to figure out how these things actually work, right? There's more than one way to configure L's, right? Nico? Right? So, you know, or rectangles, rectangular desks, or circular desks, or whatever, right? So beginning to sort of tile those around and start to understand how those actually work together, but figuring it all out, right, at that level, right? So you're going to be going back and forth once you come back from spring break. You're going to be working at this scale of the furniture and desks and layout, right? And at the larger scale of like, you know, how those things actually populate inside of the shell, right? And how those things work, how this works together or is separated from the other parts of your program and section, right? I mean, that's the name of the game here. Right? You're always gonna have to jump back and forth between scales, right? Anything you do here has profound implications on the larger, and anything you do at the larger has profound implications on how you can arrange all the units inside, right? So if I was going to do workspace, right? First of all, I'm going to see, okay, well, how much space do I actually have here and how much do I need? So right away, I can start to look at that, right? I could even start to, again, try to figure out, okay, if there's circulation around this, I need at least 3 feet, maybe more, depends on if it's a main sort of circulation route, right, or not. Ugh. Oof. There we go, explode. Seriously, there we go, all right. What I'm doing is I'm just trying to get this extents out here, right? So I can say project, right? And why won't it project? That's weird. Smart track, there we go. Yeah, smart track, come on, smart track. Be smarter, be better. And etc. And start to figure out like how much space do I actually have here dedicated to one person, right? So in this case, if I typed in area, let's see, right? That's already 83 square feet just for this one workstation, right? Now, there's divider over here, right? And, so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to do is trying to figure out how these things start to tile together, right? It's up to you to have credible layouts for your systems, right? So let's say now that I have this unit, right, for my diagram, I'm going to have, oh, I don't know why this is so laggy on me. It's annoying. Maybe I'll go ahead and just, maybe there's lots of little pieces and components in each of these. I'll delete that away. Maybe that'll speed things up a little bit here, or not, right? So right away, I'm going to, maybe do this, right? Here, let's see what I have here. Copy this over. Come on. Sorry, this is like severely lagging.
It's probably your chairs. There's a lot of
Yeah.
line work for that. I don't know if you can hide them or.
Right. So for instance, let's get rid of that. Oh, I see. These spaces are integrated into two because they're open floor plan. But let's say I had one seat here, right? I could make an axon of this and then say this plus this, and then show how they go together to form two, right? And I could show how those two get deployed in a hexagon. I could show how hexagons could tile into 50 hexagons, right? Does that make a little more sense, Nico?
Yeah, thank you.
Again, it's about spatializing your program. Does that make sense? Here's here's a list of all the spaces I need, right? And like words and some numbers that are really abstract. Here's what they would look like. Here's when I actually populate space with furniture. Here's how much room I really need, right? Here are the basic ingredients I'm going to use when I get back from spring break and start to do space planning with, right? Just like Norman Foster, his office had all the little 3D printed furniture and they could move it around. This really large quarter scale model of an office, right? And sort of, look at different scenarios and everybody could sort of wrap their heads. The client could see it. They loved it because they could wrap their heads around it and start to play with it as well, like a little dollhouse or something. We'd have to do that virtually, but that's exactly what we're doing, right? So that's what we need. We need to do it. We need like to spatialize your workspace program, right? Because honestly, the developer is also the CEO of the headquarters. So if that doesn't work, then he's just going to fire you, right? Or she's just going to fire you. Right? It's me, so it's a he, I guess. So does that make sense? So that's what we're doing. We're trying to spatialize the program, right? And so when we get back, look, by Friday, you need to finish the site plan. By Friday, we're going to do a little more of the sort of the contour models and sort of looking at the spaces that you have in there. And then you need to finish this, right? You need to do this part, do this sort of axons, okay? Now, what I haven't done here is actually added a floor, which I need to do so that you would start to see shadows on the floor. And with a grid, 24 by 24 inch grid across it, right? Again, in this case, I wouldn't need to put walls. This is open plan space, right? If there were going to be walls, then I need to put walls. If they're dividers that are movable on rollers or something, then I need to put those in as furniture. Okay. Does that help a little bit? Right. So make this useful for you, but also think about it. Again, this is going to be for your design process. It's also going to be how you present your program at the end, right? You're not going to show a spreadsheet on a slide and we're going to like read it or like, no, it's going to be like, here's when we're looking at the office space. Here are the parts, right? 24 of these, and here's an Axon, 13 of these, 12 of these, 1 of this, etc. Right? Here's how they started to fit together. Here's planned for how we start to space plan things. And then here's a section perspective showing how this works with the preschool park that sort of weaves through it and creates courtyards inside. And basically kids can look down the light wells into the office spaces and blah, 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 or whatever. Okay. So does that, I mean, I'm jumping the gun, but does that make sense? Right. So think about this as a really important part to both the process and the end result. Right. So you'll see these showing up at the end. Yeah, exactly. I don't like to do things that don't show up at the end, right? You know what I mean? So to me, it's like, an axon of your site, right? Site model, okay, that will continue to populate. And then again, when we come back, it's like, here are all the little units, right? The cells. Here's the larger sort of wrapper containers. Here's the site that they all sit on. That's what we'll be reconciling and trying to put together. That'll be the jigsaw puzzle at the end. Okay. It's funny because they actually have the word office park, but some of you actually have office/park. Kind of funny. Just saying. All right, I'll shut up now. Okay. So for instance, if this was, let's say, my unit of showing workspace, some individual work spaces, I would need to find that area around it. I would fill that in with a surface, right? Let's see, fill it in with a surface. Why did I not thinking? Okay, yeah, sorry, just couldn't think. I have that problem a lot. It's scary, actually. And then again, make that grid across the floor there. Sure. So copy 2 feet. And just keep going. Yes, yes, yes. Click, 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 click. So what I recommend is actually bringing these out at the end when you make this an axon again, isometric. Let's say, look at this direction, for instance, and I'll turn it back to rendered mode, right? For in this case, for Rhino 7. Then I have the 24 by 24 grid. Again, I have these things. You might wait to do that at the very end when you can sort of make sure everything's exported out, or you turn everything to JPEGs at the exact same scale. So everything's the right size relative to each other. So be smart about it. Think a couple steps ahead if you can. Okay. Now, for those of you using Rhino 6, that's perfectly fine, right? Then I can actually use the legacy Rhino renderer in 7, and it's basically a Rhino 6 rendering engine. Here's what I would do. Here, you're going to have to actually hit render, I think, to get something really good out. And what you're going to do is maybe go to good quality, 72 dpi, and the viewport's just fine for these. I would look through these really carefully. A couple of things I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that the ground plane is turned off because I have my own floor plane. I want everything else to look like it's just floating in space, white space. Solid color white, transparent background. I can have that on or not. I don't really care. The lighting environment, I'm going to make sure the sun is off, but the skylight is on. So I just have soft shadows, like a diffuse sort of cloudy day like today. I might use the default studio environment for that. I might actually have to put in render curves, right? Not the surface edges, not points, but maybe the render curves so that the grid that I drew actually shows up in the rendering. And then I'm ready to hit render. Let's see what happens. This could be a massive fail. Let's see if Windows has been acting really weird on my part here. I have some memory issues, and it has everything to do with when I upgraded to is it Big Sur, whatever the latest operating system is, and then I had to upgrade to the latest Parallels, and now suddenly things aren't working quite right. I gotta sort of fine tune things. But then this will render out just as you're used to with this, or if you prefer V-Ray or whatever. I don't necessarily need to make 2D, because what you'll find is that furniture has so much detail, and make 2D is just looks stupid. Okay, so in this case, I'm just looking for a white clay model rendering, soft shadows, keep everything neutral, whites and grays. What I do, I see line work. It's like a little, like the grid on the floor. Just again to sort of show scale. Okay. I'm not sure what this is doing, but I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording for now, because I think I've done most of the demo that will be helpful for you guys if you need to return to this later on. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop share. And I sounded like someone was getting on the mic to ask a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask. I don't want to make